they are struggling and willing to come up with the better ways of having quality product to their customers. That we're talking about the students that are consuming the education, their parents who are taking them there, and also the teachers who are the instructors of these of the students. So if you look at it from that perspective, then you realize that there's a lot that goes unknown behind the scene, if I can use that term, that go unnoticed or unrecognized by many people. And what it means then is that you need to have or to put in place a very versatile team so that it can detect before, as mentioned by Belinda, before things go wrong. These are people who are supposed to be committed. So we're looking at the value system here. Who are these people that you're working at? Imagine you have your kid in a boarding school and you're not sure what is going on. We've seen for the last few months, we had a number of schools, for instance, having issues to do with the fires, where accidents are prone. I mean, you can't even explain. Kids get sick, taken to hospital. Some were told they're dying. Some as a result of poor hygiene and all that. So we are saying the focused or those institutions that are forward thinking have now started really thinking on how they are going to position themselves, not just by marketing their products, but by even the people they are engaging in terms of the employees. I remember when I was in high school, we used to have a matron and then the cooks. If you ask me what the work of matron was to open for us the dining hall to go and get, and that's it. You'll pass by the dining hall and you find them under the tree. There's storytelling. Now things have changed. Things have changed. The issue of food safety. These people, you don't just go and get the best Sunday school teacher or the most active prefect and you give him, the matron. No, these things have changed. And you tell me, Belinda will tell you, even the chef they are engaging. These are people who have done proper nutritional courses. They know which food to give at what time, so that the parent, if you have a kid who has maybe condition, your kid is well taken care of. The same way you fly and you provide details of your health, and when the time comes for serving, you get the right food, which will not affect you. So the same thing you are seeing. And very few people have noticed this, and they are going where they are getting value for their money. Claire, back to
Thank you.
you.
Thank you for that. Quite
Yeah.
a funny story. Belinda, you want to to chime in on that? The
Yes.
matron.
I went to a village school.
Yusuf, you're very funny. I just wanted to add something.
Yeah.
You mentioned about trying to identify inefficiencies.
Yes.
Um, Benchmarking really helps.
Hmm.
You can check with other schools or other institutions and find out what they're doing. You'll be able to discover their gaps in yours. And also, something else I've noticed, data never lies. You just check enrollment numbers, maybe. If they've gone down, it means there's something you're not doing right.
Yeah.
And also, something else that is very critical, feedback from students, parents, colleagues, even the general community. It will always tell you, the feedback will always tell you where something is going wrong and what you need to fix.
Wow, wow, that's very powerful. Data never lies, and feedback is very important for you to understand where the gaps are and where you need to improve. And as you talk about data, you said that operations management really relies heavily on data. I'd like us to talk a little bit about now the role of technology. In your situation and your experience, Belinda, how does technology come in to ensure that you optimize operation efficiency? Because right now we're in the age of AI. Everyone is talking about AI is here to stay. It's not here to take anyone's job, but it's here to help people just get more efficient about what they're doing. So if you're talking about data, how do you collect data? Do you use AI? Do you what kind of technology are you using to ensure that whatever you're getting is going to help you now make your institution a better place?
Okay. Uh, there are various types of technology, and the education industry, we are very lucky we have so many systems in place, so many that can help you gather data. So you have to really be careful when selecting the technology you're going to use for any of your operations, whether it's finance, whether it's HR, whether it's procurement, whether it's transport, because they keep changing. So you really need to have something that is robust, that can sustain technological advancement and when things actually change. And we use these systems to actually gather data, because once you input something, you're able to analyze the data in the system that you have, because they are different, and be able to make a decision. I'll give you an example when it comes to, that's just one way in which data assists us in operational efficiency. When students come in, they'll probably clock in. I'm just giving an example. They'll probably clock in. You'll be able to tell maybe by around 9 how many students are in. That data that you have will be able to assist the kitchen department to plan for the quantity of meals that they are going to cook. So clearly, that's technology helps us to reduce wastage. Now, how else can technology assist us to optimize our operations? Training. Nowadays, we have so much happening on the internet. We can use also collaborative tools to connect a trainer to some of our staff members. Online training, because operations team are normally very busy. So they might not be able to be away for 3 days for training. It's impossible. Things will collapse. Who will do what? So we do online trainings a lot. We also get resources from the internet. Also, technology has helped us to maintain the safety and well-being of students in campus. When it comes to young learners, their safety is very, very key. In fact, that is one thing we always say, they are our primary objective. We are all here to take care of these children, and their safety is very important. So you find we have so much going on around the security measures that we give our children. Not just surveillance, there are so many tools that we have, technologies that have come up that support security. These are things maybe we'll discuss in another series, what is available to support security when it comes to our students. Integration of technology in learning, feedback mechanisms with parents. You don't have to send them letters, then they'll give you feedback. Nowadays, everything is
Yeah.
it's automated, and you get immediate feedback. They just click here, and there, and you already have your feedback, and
Yeah.
you're able to improve. You get feedback from students, you get feedback from parents, you get feedback from staff, and you're able to improve in the areas where you're failing. So technology has really come in handy. Also, it's not all about just ICT technology. We have other energy efficient ways of managing cost. Because again, operational efficiencies, as I mentioned earlier, must add quality, must reduce wastage, must manage costs, and must be able to help you save on time. And technology has done tremendously in helping people in operations to optimize their efficiency.
Wow, wow, that's a good one, because just as you talked about that issue of like you look at the students who have clocked in so that you can know how many meals to make. I just remember like just this week I was at a supermarket, and these days they all have like the aisle where they make fresh food, and I was thinking, what do they do with this food if people don't eat it? Is it going to be recycled? All these things come to mind. So I guess even there, there's operations management that comes into it. So they have taken the data to know what is the average number of people who come for their lunch here, who come for snacks and whatnot, to make sure that they are not overcooking and getting into losses. So I think that's a very interesting thing to look at, and just to see how it can be converted in other sectors as well. But Yusuf, maybe you can also add on to this conversation and talk about how these operational efficiencies are affected by government laws and whatnot. And I'll also have you, Belinda, speak to that. How do regulations really affect operational efficiencies? Because just as you mentioned at the beginning of this, we have transition into CBC. Yes, there's the international curriculum and whatnot, but there are so many things that come with that transitioning and trying to get into the new system and whatnot. Government regulations changing every now and then. How do we make sure that things keep moving, and how do these regulations and external factors really affect efficiencies?
Thank you so much, Claire. If you look at the employment regulations or the labor laws, for instance, here in Kenya, there's a lot that is being demanded from the employer, and which is still in line with which affects how things are managed in the institutions. For instance, if you look at the Employment Act, it talks about the terms and condition of employment or service. How do you engage people? And here we're looking at even the recruitment. It demands for fairness in all when you're dealing with the people, and these are things that are going to affect the operation of organization. It also demands some statutory fulfillment at the end of the certain period. For instance, we are talking about the finance bill in Kenya. We're looking at the issues that the huge burden that is coming to the employer, the taxations that we're seeing. So these are some of the things that affect how things are run in organization. If you look at the OSHA Act, the OSH, Occupation Safety and Health Act, it prescribes how our workplace should be. So you, as the organization or the institution that is hosting students and employees, you have to be very careful. Go and ensure that you're complying with some of the provision. We have to do what we call annual inspection at workplace, and you have to report to the Directorate of Occupation Safety and Health on what you're doing to ensure you reduce accidents at workplace. And they do those impromptu visits to audit if you're in compliance with the law. So if you look at OSH, as we speak today, there's some amendment to the OSH to have a state corporation, an authority, stand alone so that they can enhance their work. Look at other like the RBA, the Retirement Benefit Act. It prescribes, it demands actually employers to provide for retirement benefits for its employees. You look at it's called now the SHAS. It's called the health, the new one from NHIF to now what
Yes,
we call
social
the
health, social health fund.
yes. So you see, all these things are going to affect how employers are managing people. We've just been discussing about the housing levy. These are regulations that come and affect your budget. And Belinda, the people who deal with the budget, they have to be to be up to date with what is happening. Look at, for instance, the Labor Institution Act. We just and the Labor Regulation, Labor Institution Act. You look at the labor relations. We've just come from the striking doctors. And these are things that are provided. There's nothing you can do. You can imagine the hospitals, what they are going through. You open up, you're not sure if these people will show up. I am told the teachers are also on the way. They're coming and they're demanding more. So these are regulations that affect how organization, especially education. For those who are in private sector, it affects them a huge time because the level of tolerance and also how they manage those it's quite different from the public sector. For government, they can demand or they just decide this is what we want to do and you have to comply. So you look at all this, it means then if you are a manager, now I'm not talking about operations only, the CEOs that are in the call, you have to keep up to date with that, what is happening. We've seen institutions suffering, others even close shop because of just small things. We're talking about issues of harassment of employees, and they have huge impact. I don't want to mention institutions here, but we are aware about international organizations that were had to close shop because of mistreating a cleaner, a security guard. So these are things that are coming into play. And what we are saying is that we have to keep up to date with what is happening and ensure we comply with the regulation. You look at this amount of money that you can be fined, you realize that this can also affect how you're going to operate. We've seen institutions now trying to comply with the Minister of Education regulations. The number of students in a classroom, for instance, the numbers of the instructors, the curriculum that is they're offering to students, the time that students are given in terms of trying to balance the classwork and out of class activity and so on, Claire.
Wow, okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, so government regulations can really have a huge impact on organizations and how they run. And right now we are in the season of the finance bill 2024. So there are a number of other proposals there, which they go into the act, that's a whole other thing that organizations need to think of and comply with. But Belinda, I'd also like to hear from you because you're in the private sector as well. What are some of these external factors that really affect efficiencies, operational efficiencies? Because as Yusuf said, that OSHA, the Health and Safety Act, there are so many things, moving parts, and you could find yourself being penalized heavily because you did not comply with a certain rule or a certain regulation. Just how do you make sure that you're up to date with this and increasing your efficiency at the same time? And how do these things impact on an organization?
If there is anything that an operations person should not take for granted, not just the national government regulations, we also have county regulations.
Yes, true. Oh,
You cannot ignore that group.
yeah.
You have to be very careful and ensure you comply 100%. Sometimes you might not be able to achieve 100%, but I always say target to get there, because education is a very sensitive place when it comes to do, especially regulations surrounding health matters.
Yeah.
You have to be extremely careful and make sure you comply. ESG matters, you have to be very careful to comply. Yusuf will tell us about ESG. It's about matters to do with environment, social inclusivity, and governance. Those are things as an institution you have to comply. So when you're doing your budgets, you must include matters and ESG voted and anything to do with compliance, because those are things that you cannot compromise. And how do you keep up? You must always know what is supposed to be due when. Keep a record. We have systems to help you do that so that they can probe you when you're about to hit a deadline. Because there are so many, especially in the education institution, there are so many. And if you're not careful, you have audits, you have certifications you need to get some certifications, you need to comply to certain regulations. We also have the normal finance stuff that you need to do. So you must have a checklist logged in somewhere in the systems that you have within your system, and make sure that you keep track of when you're supposed to do these things. That does not only apply to the institution, also your staff members. In ops, you're dealing with chefs, matrons, people who are just involved in student health and safety. It is also the role of the operations function or the team leader to ensure that these people are certified to work in that particular institution. So don't just focus on the institution as a whole. You also need to focus on the people. Now, back to other external factors. We have things like natural disasters. The other day we had El Ninos. You are an operations person, you've planned yourself, you've done procurement, you're ready to receive kids, then boom, kids can't come to school. The president has said they can take siestas. Mm? So what do? Eh? You have to really take a backseat and see, okay, I have these things. Maybe they might go bad or they might not be able to. Now my budget has been messed up because now I have things probably I've bought for the whole term. The term has become shorter. So you have to learn to realign yourself and have contingency plans for everything that you do. Another thing that normally affects operations are competitors. It's especially in the education sector and the private sector, your competitor is always doing something that you also want to do. You do this, next time you hear, oh, they've done something even better. And you're like, I just did this yesterday. What has happened? Eh? And you want to keep up. Eh?
Yeah.
So really, so as the operations team, you have to always see what else can I do to improve. Your mind is always working. I need to be better. I need to be step ahead. This school A has done this. And it affects your budget.
Yeah.
So you have to find a smart way of being a step ahead without affecting your budget, without bringing wastage into the institution. And that's why earlier on I said things like technology, when you decide to invest in something, make sure it's completely robust, not something that you'll want to change soon. So those are some of the external factors that really affect operations. Mostly government regulations, they come in, natural disasters, and then competitors, and of course we also have funding issues. Uh, Normally you'll find private institutions, rarely do they get funding unless you're now able to get partnerships, grants, compared to government education institutions. Those ones they get, but the private institutions, not so much. But you have to have also a strong business development team that is able to get partnership grants that are able to support some issues in the institution, especially ESG matters. Those ones I know getting funding and partnerships is not very hard. And just we were talking about emerging trends earlier on. One thing that I need to mention is that ESG has become a key emerging trend in operations. And any educationist who is listening to this, or an operations manager or operations director, if you're not implementing ESG practices in your institution at the moment, you're not doing yourself a favor. It's critical you go back and see how you can work on it.
Wow, wow. I think we'll even have to have a whole session on ESG, and I'll let Yusuf just speak a little bit about that because you're an expert in that. But what I'm hearing from you, Belinda, is that there's so many moving parts, and a person in operations management really has to be having their finger on the pulse and their ear on the ground, because there are so many moving parts. The way you said, like, you have your budget, and then schools don't open. What are you going to do with this food? And then there are safety issues, and then I like the way you've talked about, you're not only talking about national rules, because sometimes we focus on the national rules and laws, but then there are the county ones where your organization is domiciled, and you really need to make sure that you're in good books there so that you don't have issues. So there's just so many moving parts that you've talked about there. And you've also talked about, the way you've said that budgets keep moving, or you see another institution or organization doing something and you also need to invest in that. Then comes the issue of, then there has to be a budget for investing for things, emerging things that come up, I guess, because as you said, there's a school that did this, then you also need to implement that. There's something that has come up that was out of budget. So there's quite a lot, and you'll talk a little bit more about that, Belinda. But Yusuf, maybe you can touch briefly on the aspect of ESG and its importance in the workplace and in operations management as a whole, really, because there's been a lot of conversation on ESG, and now there's also the emerging talk on DEI, that diversity, equity, and inclusion. So maybe just touch on ESG a little bit.
Okay, thank you so much, Claire and Belinda. If you talk about ESG, I know many people wondering what is ESG. That is simply environmental, social, and governance. And this has become a huge thing now, and investors and people are demanding on ESG reporting. So that's why people are now coming up with the ESG strategy to just see how are you going to fulfill the ESG, or how are you going to integrate the ESG initiatives into your strategy or your operations. For instance, if you look at what is in terms of the environmental, we've had a call for climate action. What we're supposed to do in terms of saving the planet and the people. And today I've just from planting some trees at Bomas of Kenya. Although I enjoy the forest, but you see, even Kenya as a country has come up and is now known for its commitment to the climate action by encouraging people to plant trees every day. You look at the social issues that we're talking about. Today we're talking about DAID. DAID is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And we are, for those who are scouting for investors, they want you to report. How are you dealing with things to do with diversity? Can you prove? They want to see how is your staff composition. We've now moved away from the gender bit, in quotes, where we were looking just for women men ratios. We're going deeper to see how do you accommodate people with different perspective, different beliefs and all that. Then you look at the governance issues, the transparency. I mean, investors want those organizations that are open. The board, how is their board operating? So these are just things to do with the ESG we're talking about. As you mentioned, I think we'll need another series to just talk about ESG when we have time. But in a nutshell, what Belinda's mentioned, we even now have an organization coming up with committees or teams called ESG teams, and you have to train them. They have standards that they have to acquire at certain time. Issues to do with how you deal with, say, I know this one is a hot topic, but people of different gender in terms of their, the gender. Here we're talking about their beliefs, what they do, how, where they, you have to accommodate. Of course, you come and look at issues to do. The other one was interesting when we were, I was doing another course on ESG, and I was seeing how you're supposed even to report the number of people who are coming up. Remember, those are whistleblowing policy and campaigns. You remember?
Yeah.
Now they want you to encourage people to stand out and speak about the bad things you're doing to them. And this one has gone further, even to the consumers of your products.
Yeah.
They demand more. So they demand on how they want to know. They want to know how this one was done. How, I mean, if you're treating if for instance, in an institution like Belinda's, and Belinda will tell you, parents will come. There are things students are taught, and parents they demand to know why you're teaching my kid A, B, C, D. So, and this one, people think it's just because the world, people are now informed and in compliance with where we are heading in terms of the current trends. You just have to be open. You understand?
Yeah.
It was only in government where people would come and ask, for instance, recruitment. We want to know the procedure. The procedure you went through for you to identify this talent. Today we are seeing this. Investors will come and ask you for those reports. We want to see the recruitment reports. We want to see the performance. We want to see how you've dealt with disciplinary issues. And all this, you look at it, comes under ESG practices.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
I think you've just even preempted my next question because I was going to ask about some of the challenges that are faced by operation management teams. And you've talked about it, just like you said, like in an educational institution. These days, we have very discerning and demanding parents. So they want to know, I mean, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And you have to give them the answers. It's not just a dictatorial kind of way of doing things. You really have to be answerable to the parents and different stakeholders. How are the budgets being used? Why did you decide to do this other than that? Why did you procure from there and that? So, Belinda, tell us more about some of the challenges you face in operations management. I mean, you've talked about just the whole juggling of it, but what other challenges do you face?
Um, the most obvious budget constraints. In operations, you always want to do all the nice things. So if you could be given Kenya's budget to manage one school, I'll be very happy.
A few trillions won't hurt.
Exactly. So budget constraints will always be there because you want to do more. And operations nowadays, previously it was all about cost saving, which it still remains, but you are now becoming customer focused. The trend is now moving. We are not just focusing on saving costs because previously ops was all about I need to save costs, I need to save costs, I need to save costs, with total disregard to the to the customer. But nowadays the operations teams that in the emerging eras, we focus on customers. So to improve customer experience, you need to be able to offer certain services. And sometimes you don't have to have you don't have the budgets. So that's one of the challenge. Another one is the juggling, as you've mentioned, the various diverse needs. You're an operations manager or operations director or head of operations. You have to deal with this, you have to deal with this. There's the push and pull from all corners. So if you don't plan yourself very well, you might land into a problem. And if you don't budget well, you might land into a problem. And then another thing that we have is the lack of skill set in the operations area. Like Yusuf said, there are no specific qualifications for an operations person. You must have a diverse set, procurement and all. Although nowadays I normally tell the younger generation or people who want to be the operations team, try to have at least a minimum of 2 skills for you to be able to juggle the operations function. Because sometimes you have to make very quick decisions. I don't need to call my finance manager to ask issues about tax or how debits and credits and things like that because I have that knowledge. I don't have to call Yusuf to ask about something in HR because I already know it. I know if I make this decision, this is the way it will go. So that skill set is lacking in operations. And then also the acceptance of the operations function as an independent function in education institution is a challenge. It's actually a new trend because previously it has always been a function that has been handled probably by the team in the education sector. So it's already a new trend. So we are still having a challenge of acceptance, but I think we are getting there once it's appreciated that it's a critical function in the education sector. Then
Wow.
finally, in operations, we normally have so many policies. You can't run such a robust operations function without having very clear policies to guide people. The challenge is implementing, especially if you're dealing with a huge group. Implementing a policy can be a challenge. You might have resistance, or you might have a very slow acceptance, or you may have misinterpretation, people not understanding the policy. So you have to really do a lot to ensure everyone in the organization is aligned so that even as you're running your programs, they are fully supported by those that you're supporting and even the team, the operations team.
Wow, wow, wow. So just getting that buy-in, because there are so many people involved. So just getting the buy-in can be quite something. And as you said, that you need multiple skills. And I think this is just true for any career today. You really have to be multi-skilled. You're not just a one person, I do finance and that's all I know, or I'm in HR and that's all I know. You really need to have a diverse skill set, because as you said, you need to be able to make decisions quickly. So you don't need to you don't need to be the person who's calling every person before you actually make a decision. So that's very important, and that will bring me to the next issue of the education that's required, because you said there's no specific skill set, but I'd like us to understand what are some of the tracks that can lead us into operations management. But before we do that, I'd like to sample some of the comments that have come in from some of our listeners. And I'll start here with Richard Magoma, who is a friend of the show. Hi, Richard. Lots of learning. I should do a lot in operational excellence, even if it has a mathematical element. Thanks for that. Godfrey Ongeri, who's saying, excellent panel there. Thanks for that. And then we have Kate Wekesa, who is saying, for any education institution, they have a certain competitive priority. That operations manager will ensure that it has capabilities developed and managed within the 5 priorities, and as such, the people, processes, systems, and product or service being offered runs smoothly and enhances the sustainability, productivity, efficiency, and effectiveness of the institution through the 6 pillars of operational excellence. Thanks for that comment. Keep your comments coming and we'll continue to sample them. Richard Magoma has a question here. How does one manage complex systems in operations management, making sure that no part of the jigsaw is left out? I'll allow you to answer that, Belinda, at the tail end of this. And Kate also says, to support Saleh, he says, due to ESG, one of the competitive priorities is sustainability. Thank you for those comments and keep them coming. Now, I'd like us to, before we answer those questions, I'd like us to talk a little bit about the education tracks that could lead us to operations management. And maybe I'll start with you, Belinda, and then Yusuf, you can also chime in on that. As you said, there's no specific educational background that could lead you into operations management, because there's so many skill sets that are required. But somebody who's listening to this and is saying, this is something that I'd like to get into, what are some of the tracks that could lead us into this? What training should I be looking at?
Okay. Any business related course is okay, but you'd realize in manufacturing industry, mostly you'd find the operations management team comprises of engineers, you know, so it's industry based. But majority of people who end up in operations uh, have taken business courses, business related courses, because if you hear the things that are actually in operations are things that are business related. So you really need to have a skill in business management, because operations is about managing processes and managing people. So any course in business area, I think you'd be good to go. But even in the manufacturing industry, like I said, it really, really varies. There is no specific course that directs you to being an operations manager. Operations people end up there by what I'd like to call experience. You probably interned somewhere as an operations person. You probably, your first job, you landed in operations, or you got an interest. Maybe you're hearing this talk and you say, okay, I like the versatility that comes with operations. Then you come and say, okay, Belinda, how can you get me to get into operations? So operations, once you have the first degree, or even, you don't have to have a degree, even a diploma, mostly people get it from internships, mentorships, voluntary work is when you realize I actually love this. I always say operations is firefighting. So when you like firefighting, that's your thing. When you like doing stuff, when you don't like the boring stuff of sitting down and just dealing with one item, when you like thinking, when you like, dealing with processes and systems, when you like making decisions very fast that you know are very effective, then you are the right person to join operations. But if you're that person who just likes relaxing, operations might not be for you. Like I mentioned, I didn't want to do finance because I realized I was sitting on my desk morning to evening looking at an Excel sheet and assisted we were working with. I thought, no, that's not for me. I want to be up and about and do interesting things, interact with people, and be able to help support any co-business. So operations, no specific degree, but I would say courses in business would really, really help you to give you a footing. And then if you can get an internship or a voluntary work or a mentor, someone to guide you into getting into ops, then you're really, really good to go. And then skills, please make sure if you're able to have um, HR skills, you get some leadership skills, just make sure you're not inclined into one item. Because in ops, 1 minute you're dealing with a HR matter, the next minute you are thrown into another thing, and you should be able to make that quick switch and be able to handle things.
Wow, wow. So firefighting, if you firefighting seems like an exciting venture for you, then you can consider operations management. I like that because indeed the way you have explained all the things that you need to be doing, 1 minute you're here, the next you're there, you're trying to make sure everything is working. It's really firefighting. So Yusuf, maybe you can tell us what are some of the courses that someone can also complement. Belinda talked about business is a good foundation to look at, and then there's the industry that you're in. It's really industry based, so then you can think of what courses from there. But what other kind of training can someone think about, whether it's online, whether it's in person? What are some of the trainings that someone can look at to complement their skills and their learning in operations management?
Okay. Thank you so much, Claire and Belinda, for the the insights that you're giving us. For me, and just like Belinda said, you have to have that push from we within yourself, self push. Listening to Belinda talking, what came to my mind was a foreman. You know, a foreman, someone who interacts with everything in a construction site. So, I mean, you cannot start thinking about being in operations when you're lazy. No, it can't work for you. You have to know a few things. I know of guys who know everything. It's not bad for you to know everything. I mean, they have an idea. Today you ask this guy. Today you ask this guy.
No,
I
it's
want a
it's
new
also
car.
true for journalists. We need to know a little bit of everything.
Yes. So there are guys you ask them, you just ask, I want a new car. He'll give you an idea. He'll tell you even where you get this. So you ask, I think I need to move. I need to move houses. They tell you the estate, and
Yes,
they'll give you a profile. And you wonder what time this guy knows all these things. It's
yes,
just the interest. It's just the interest and what drives you. So you start. For you first, you have to decide. This is what I want to do. If you're fearing to be dirty, you can't do it because I'm sure there are times Belinda goes to look at those repairs that are done. I mean, those are not things you can just go there. You have to be there, show up, and be ready. So, as he mentioned, you might need also for those who are still they're starting. I think for them it will be useful for them to have technical skills, these hands-on skills, so that you at least you are good in one or two areas. You know, you know how to repair. I mean, we start with repairs, these small things that people do. Once you understand that, it means you can manage. Because there's also a big challenge when you're not aware of the market and where to get some of these things. In my capacity, I also manage people and the admin side. So I also have a huge chunk of my work just looking at administration. I mean, the operation things. Even for we supervising even the outsourced services and those vendors that are come to support us. So I would encourage them to start looking at the technical skills. We have the good thing and the good news is that vocational trainings institutions are now alive and beating. I mean, they are live. You can walk to any now. They have instructors. They are opening those to anyone who is coming, and you can start from there. Then the other thing for me is we should be talking about succession plan. I mean, we've talked about mentorship, we've talked about coaching and all that. Who are willing to come and help the next phase or the next generation, the people who will take over? I can hear Belinda talking about the younger generation. I don't know how old Belinda is. She's talking about the older.
I was actually also thinking about that. I was like, which generation are we?
Young is relative.
I was like, younger generation. I thought we are there anyway.
No, on a later note. But the thing is, we would want to have someone better than Belinda. We would want to see someone better than Claire. And specifically for this sector or this industry or this profession where many people are not aware they are even in operation. Belinda didn't mention that. There are people, they are doing that work and they are not even aware that they are
True.
operation guys.
True.
You know, many
True.
of the people, you sit down with someone, you ask him what he does. I mean, he doesn't know, but that is exactly what he's doing. So for me, I would be keen to see how many people are willing to create that pool of potential successors, people who can come up and take over. You know, we should be opening our doors to people who are willing. I expect at the end of this call, we get a few people who are interested to be mentored. I mean, just slowly as we prepare the next generation, if I use Belinda's one. So succession planning come into play here. And it's a call to any profession who is dealing with such things to just try to hold one or two people. It doesn't have to be within your organization. It could be outside. There's people who are interested. Or we bring it even back home. I mean, in your institutions, try identify. From HR perspective, it starts from identifying the gaps, the skill gaps that you have. And then you look at the people who can fit. There are those people who have to be pushed, yeah, for them to be good or be into what you are. More often, some of us and majority of people don't know exactly what they want, and it's so sad. People cannot. They'll tell you this is what I want, but that's not exactly what they want, and they're not willing also to be guided. So, for me, the big thing is we prepare the next phase of people of the generation. We look at, and the next generation should not be people who are even younger than us. I'm talking about our peers, but those people who maybe they are tired of what they are doing and they would want to switch and focus on this kind of things that you're talking about, Claire.
Yeah, I think I like that. Just as you said, mentoring the next. Just as you said, it's not necessarily the next generation. It can just be even your colleagues or your peers. There are people who are looking to transition. There are people who feel like, okay, I've contributed what I can to where I'm at, but I'm interested in a new dimension. And maybe they've been listening to this conversation, listening to what you and Belinda are saying, and they're saying, this is probably something that I'd like to pursue. So, how to go about it? So, just having people to hold their hands. So, as you said, maybe after this call, we'll get people who are interested and we can see how to go about that. Now, I'd like us to, our time is fast running out, but I'd like us to talk a little bit about continuing our professional development. And I'll give that question to you, Belinda, and then we will answer the question that had been posed in the questions section. What are some of the best resources for somebody who is looking to improve themselves and to continue with their professional development in the operations management field?
Okay. First of all, I want to mention that in Kenya currently we don't have a body that regulates operations professionals. You know, the same way we have, you know, the ISPAC, the IHRM, and all, because we are still trying to figure out what are the qualifications for operations management person. But I know nowadays we have a master's degree in maybe business management, operations management options. I have seen, we have them. I think I've seen them in a number of universities when I'm doing my research. So we have so many courses online by Coursera, done by Coursera. There are so many online courses, the Harvards and all. So someone can actually look out for them and do those courses in operations management. Then you also need, in operations, you are actually project managers as well. You
Yeah,
can
and
do
I think
courses.
also you should mention some of them are free because sometimes people think all of them are paid. Even those Harvard ones, there are so many that are offered for free. It's just for you to look for
Yes,
them.
exactly. Then another resource, like I said, mentors. uh, Reach out to someone. They can guide you what is needed, what it entails, what it involves to be an operations person. And also something else, you can read books. There are books on operations management that they are online. You can listen to audio books. They can really help. Then we have workshops. We have so many workshops that are ongoing, only that maybe they are not really publicized if you're in a network. But I think we have to reach a point where operations people, we really need to share some of that information, because you'll have a workshop that just focuses on facilities management. You'll have another workshop that focuses on transport management. You'll have another workshop. So those are things I encourage people in operations. Attend those niche trainings, because they really give you insight on what you really need to understand. So workshops, online materials, mentors. Yes, we have courses now in Kenya at the degree level, master's level, and I think some certificates. But what really bothers me is that we don't have a professional body currently that governs operations managers. And maybe if someone in government is listening to this, they should know that I'll be coming. So we also need such bodies that govern, because now it's a solid profession, and I think it needs to be treated as such. And people in operations should now take it seriously and try to find ways of legitimizing it the same way it's legitimate, but now making it a complete profession.
Wow, wow, I like that, and I like the way you said that you're even taking the lead in going through that how do we say, going through making it a body, a corporate body, or a government body to regulate these professionals. So it's good that you're taking the lead in that and making sure that there is a body, because it just makes things much easier, streamlining everything a lot easier. And I like the way you talked about the audio books and the workshops. And maybe you can talk about those workshops. Where do people find out about them? Because when it's an online course, I mean, it's just online, but sometimes people just hear about workshops and whatnot after the fact. There was a workshop that was happening for operations management after the fact. So how do people get to know about some of these things that are happening within their areas?
Okay. Normally we have networks. I mean, a network of people in operations management. Some of us who have been in it for quite long. Also, if you just check LinkedIn, sometimes I just bump into them. Type operations, and you might find something that is almost happening, and you find yourself there. So use the social networks, even Facebook, or just Google facilities management course. You might find something is happening anywhere. So really embrace the internet. Try to get into the networks, but for me, mostly my networks have really assisted, because someone will text me and tell me, "Oh, Belinda, this is happening here and there. Are you interested? This is happening here and there." And also, I'm in various educational groups. The CAPSEAs, So those groups, you'll find some of those things are posted there, and some I also assist in organizing them, so I know about them. So yeah, it's just the networks, and also use your socials very well, and
Yeah.
you'll get to know where things are happening.
Great, great. Important. Networking is very important, and just use your socials. As you said, you can just go to a search engine and put something that you're interested in, and you'd be surprised what you'd find. And even on this platform that we're using right now, LinkedIn, there's so many things that you can find if you just look for them. So thanks for that. Now, Yusuf, I'd also like you to tell us a little bit more about how we can improve our professional development when it comes to operations management, and then we can get closing comments, and we will have more and more of these discussions.
Thank you so much, Claire and Belinda. For me, I would one thing that is should everyone should have in mind is the thought of upskilling and reskilling. Very important. What you read yesterday, or the skill that you had yesterday, today and tomorrow becomes obsolete. I mean, you have to keep on seeking new ways of doing things. And as mentioned here, you can be learning through such forums, and you make it intentional. That you see the way in organization people are given targets. You can give yourself targets on what specific skills you'd want to acquire after some time. And 1 year is long time. I mean, 1 year is long time. So we even we're scaling it down to weekly. You say this week, what is it that I can learn new? And as mentioned, these are things that we have a lot of resources online. The professional bodies provide also some pieces of such skills that you have. You don't have to go for you don't have to be a HR person for you to attend an HRM, that is the Institute of Human Resource Management training. No, you don't have to be an accountant for you to attend the ISPAC training. No, and if you talk to them, they'll tell you it's open. You realize even we've changed. They have when you look at the instructional design, they've changed even the course content and the target groups. Previously, they would insist this course is for accountant, but nowadays you realize they say anyone doing ABCD. So
Yeah.
it means people appreciate that there's a thirst for knowledge and the new skills, and that they're encouraging everyone to participate. I like the idea of networks, and if you leverage on the networks that you have, you're going to learn and get a lot of things in your profession, because this is where you realize there's someone with a unique or some skill that you've been wanting to acquire, and it's just right here with you. It could be on the WhatsApp, it could be on LinkedIn, as Belinda has post. It could be on Facebook or Instagram. So I would encourage people to leverage on their networks. The good thing about nowadays is that you find even that we have free, like this one. This is a free session where you get now insight where to start. Because I know many people, the challenge is, where do I start? I'm here. Where do I start? So if you attend more of these sessions, you realize you get a lot of insights, and it's easy for you to now start whatever you want to do. Another way is to look at your alumni. I mean, the schools, the universities that you can go back there. I know most of them now have very active alumni networks. You can still be active there. You realize you learn a lot from the people you are with in campus. I just realized we were in the same campus, Claire.
Imagine. And same course.
Yeah. Yes, same course. So we encourage people to look back and utilize any resources that they have, the networks they have, the people they know, so that they can upgrade and reskill. I mean, upgrade their skills, and even just go back and learning the same thing that maybe you forgot after time. Claire.
Great, great, great. And I like the way you said that just the way you have KPIs in your workplace, you need to give yourself personal KPIs, whether it's to do a course, whether it's to get better in whatever it is, whether it's to read books, a certain number of books. Just give yourself personal KPIs, because if you can do it for your workplace, I mean, you also need to do your own personal development. So that's very important. Now, I'd like to sample like 2 more comments, and then maybe you can answer that question about operational inefficiencies. Then we can close for the evening. Now, Kate Wekesa says, this is in response to what Belinda was saying about the courses that are being offered in operations management. She says there is a BCom in operations management, but before the year 2005, it was under management. Operations management has been taught for the last 35 years in various forms in Kenya, in undergraduate as BCom management science, and in masters under MBA specialization of operations management, or MSc operations and technology management in UON and KU. And I know of BCom management science that changed to BCom operations management Some of the skill sets they need are strategic planning, adaptability and flexibility, customer focus, supply chain management, quality management, financial acumen, technical proficiency, project management, analytical problem solving skills, leadership, and people management. There are specific courses, and you can check the Society of Operations Management in Kenya for more networking and learning on operations. Thanks a lot for that very detailed comment, Kate Wekesa. I think anyone who's listening to that and who is interested has gotten quite a bit from that. So you can look at the comment section to just see the kind of courses that you can consider doing, and that association that you can join to just get wind of all the trainings and whatnot in operations management. So maybe Yusuf, you can answer that question on operational inefficiencies as we try to have Belinda rejoin. I can see her here, but she's not able to join at the moment. So maybe you can be talking about how to deal with operational inefficiencies as Belinda rejoins, and then we can close.
Thank you so much, Claire. When you talk about operation inefficiencies, you you're looking at a situation where, or it occurs where a business uses more resources than necessary to maintain or improve its operations or output. So you realize that the organizations are, we've talked about the budget and the resources that are allocated. So they're using more of their resources than to improve or of their services, but they are not getting the output. So we're talking about the value, return on your investment. And there are various reasons for this inefficiencies. It could be the issue of people, incompetence. Sometimes we hire, and this I take a blame as HR. Talent mismatch. You get someone who is not the right fit for that job. So even if you look at in a hotel setup, I was lucky to have operated a cafeteria. So you realize a specific cook, when he's on duty, there's a lot of wastage in terms of the resources that he's using to come up with the output. But there are those ones who use the resources they're using, if it's to, and you can see the output, you know. So it starts with the incompetence. Sometimes it could be the issue of training. People are not well trained over time. It could be the issue of the work environment itself. You see, human behaviors, very funny and interesting people. When you don't treat your people well, they'll start stealing from you. You can imagine if it's a school. Let me use, because we're talking about education. It's a school. This is a school where employees or workers are not even given food, and they work in those cafeteria, or they work in the kitchen. What do you expect? I mean, it's human behavior. There are those people who cannot stand that. That I'm cooking chicken. I'm cooking chicken here. No, I'm Luya. So I have to eat chicken. I'm cooking chicken, but I cannot even eat chicken. They're looking at the other kids. I mean, the other kids are eating this food. Their kids at home, they cannot. When I was working in in an institution of higher learning, we had a lot of those cases, disciplinaries. Find someone trying to steal sugar, those small things. And when you look at the case, you realize this person doesn't have. I mean, he can't afford. And there's a lot of pressure from home. So the environment you're creating also can help you to minimize the inefficiencies. I mean, the wastages that we're talking about. If you build a team, or a team of employees who are well behaved, there's that what we call the trust. They'll trust you. They'll be committed to what they are doing, and you realize they're the ones who will be giving you ideas on even how to save the wastages that are occurring. And maybe Belinda can chip in, because
yeah. Yeah.
I missed the question. I was.
Yeah, how we can cut operational inefficiencies. You touched on it, but maybe you can answer a little bit more. That was a question from Richard Magoma.
Okay. Embracing technology. Technology can really help to cut some operational inefficiencies by automating some activities, provision of accurate data. Yes, and then also by upskilling your team. Like we said, there are people who land in operations by chance, and upskilling them is very important, as Yusuf has mentioned, just to make sure that they are able to actually carry out the duties that they expected of them. Because if you landed by chance, then you meet other challenges. Yeah, upskilling is very critical. Then, of course, policies. A stickler of policies, it's very critical that you make sure you have policies in place and you implement them to ensure that there is continuity. When one person leaves, there's a clear policy on how things are done, how we manage a certain process, how we manage a certain activity. It's very critical. Then also setting clear KPIs, key performance indicators, is very, but not so many. I always say give someone maybe 4 KPIs. Don't give someone 100 KPIs, 10 KPIs. You're being unreasonable. Give people KPIs that they are able to manage. And once you give someone KPIs, you guide them on how they are supposed to do, they're likely to do it right, and you'll minimize on some of those inefficiencies that come with especially staffing issues and,
Okay,
staff.
Yeah. Thank you for that. There's one last comment here, but that question was answered. Ignatius Muhati was asking about ensuring efficiency, which is what both you and Yusuf have answered. Now, there are a number of comments here, but I'll not sample them. We'll just go through them after this recording because of time. But I'd like us to get some closing comments, just in brief. What would you like our listeners to take home out of this conversation? Remember, we're going to have more and more of these conversations, so just stay tuned to Conversations with Claire, and we'll have more of them. So maybe I'll start with you, Yusuf. What are your closing comments on the topic of operations management?
Thank you, Claire. My parting shot is now that we're talking about operation excellence, I would encourage our listeners and the viewers to always keep on trying to get better, because there's always room for improvement. So wherever you are, at what stage you are in your career, or even in life, keep on trying, keep on pushing yourself, because there's room for that improvement. And the victors are always the people who have conquered the challenges that they've gone through. So that is my encouragement this evening, and I'm happy to note that this is a series. Hope we'll have more of this, and maybe
Definitely.
look at the timing so that people can benefit from the presenter that you'll be bringing. Thank you so much, Claire.
Thank you so much. Indeed, it has been quite an enlightening conversation and discussion, and looking forward to more and more of these, because I'm so sure people who are thinking about getting into the operations management field, whether it's in education or in other sectors, there's so much that they can gain out of this. So also, Belinda, I'd like you to give your closing comments.
Okay. Thank you so much, Claire, for organizing this wonderful conversation. I'm very passionate when it comes to matters ops and education. My parting shot is that I want to encourage all operations professionals to try to network, to try to know each other, meet in forums. Let us beat this ISPAC, guys, the IHRM people. Let's have more forums where we share, because I've learned this is a very dynamic area. Things change, and when you network, you are able to learn from one another. Nobody holds the monopoly of ideas, and I always say, today I might learn from my junior might learn from somebody else, and or I learn from a senior in the profession. So let us encourage networking in this field, so that we are able to learn from one another. And then for those in the education sector who are listening to to this conversation, I'd like to encourage you to embrace ops. It's really going to change your institutions. I have personally seen education institutions changing once they embraced the operations function. So try to look into that, try to embrace it, and yeah, let's move together. And I'm looking forward to the next series.
Super, super.
And
Thanks for
thank you
that.
to the audience who joined us and
Thank
for their contribution.
Indeed,
Yeah.
indeed. Thank you so much to both Yusuf and Belinda for your insights and your time, and to our listeners. They've been very engaging. Kit Wekesa had talked about a Society of Operations Management in Kenya. I don't know if you're aware of that one, Belinda, but it's
Yes,
also,
I am.
yes, that's something that people who are interested in the field can think of looking at. So thank you so much for that. It has been an engaging discussion, and as I said, this is just the start of a series that we're going to be doing on many more topics. We have been doing this discussion with Mzuka Africa Limited, which is a business advisory that I said that offers several courses, including things in operations management, HR, and so many other fields. So you can also reach out to them if you'd like to look at ways that you can train, whether it's yourself or your teams, and they have customized plans that they can really help you with. So do look at that on their LinkedIn page and engage with them for further discussions on that. So I'd like to end this discussion. It has been Coinversations with Claire Munde. Coin, remember coin. It's a conversation. So if it affects your pocket, we talk about it. We will have more of these discussions. So have a very good evening. Start to your weekend. Have a good evening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Hello.